Hey everybody, Mark over here at Twanger's Turntable. Hope you're all doing well, enjoying your day off. And in most places, at least here in Canada, it's a family day. Some provinces recognize it, others don't. Well, I guess they all recognize it. Some employers provide days off. I think most government employees are off. I'm off. I'm not a government employee. And in the States, of course, you got President's Day. So I hope you're all doing well. Just jumping on here for a quick video. I was watching Mike over at MGK Boston, and he introduced a lot of people to another channel. Another gentleman jumped on the vinyl community. Damon Talks Records. It's a relatively new channel, I think in the last month or two. I think he's up around 70 some subscribers here, 77, my last check. So he started a thread of, what's it say here, 10 perfect records. This is a tough one, but I mean, I consider most of my records perfect records. I mean, I wouldn't own them if I didn't like them. There are, on occasion, an album that maybe has a weak track here and there, so they're not perfect, but they're pretty damn close, in my opinion, right? So that's the gist of it, just 10 perfect records. So I just grabbed 10 albums. I'll slow down here for a minute. I mean, there's no rush. Here's everybody. Just take a moment to say, if you're new to my channel, welcome. Appreciate you stopping in and checking out my content. Periodically, I will post a video. I think all in all, I've been on here for about a year and a half or so. I may have done 70 videos in total, so not that frequent. If you're returning, much appreciated. Support is always appreciated. Yeah, so this 10 that I've got is not going to be in any particular order. They're not listed in my favorites to least favorites or anything. There's only 10, right? So, I mean, and the line between what would be my favorite and least favorite is almost nil. I mean, they're just so close. So I'm going to start off with, and probably, again, not much you're not going to see elsewhere, but if there is something you haven't seen here, leave a comment, check it out. In my opinion, they're all just stellar albums, killer albums. I'm going to start with one that goes right back to my childhood. One of the first, well, earliest anyway, hard rock bands I ever heard. And it quickly elevated to probably one of my favorites of all time. And it is an album by The Sweet, Desolation Boulevard. I mean, every track on here is so good. And it's kind of a combination of stuff that was previously released over in the UK. Sweet Fanny Adams was the album over there. And then some additional tracks. But the side one starts off with the well-known Ballroom Blitz. The 16s is just an amazing tune. And I could say that about all of these. So that's why I don't know if I'll go through every album in this manner. But then it's No You Don't, AC/DC. I Want to Be Committed, and then side two, you flip over to kicks off with Sweet FA. Like, my goodness, it's such a banger of a tune. And then Fox on the Run, the more radio friendly stuff, as was Ballroom Blitz. Set Me Free, Into the Night, Solid Cold Brass. I mean, this is considered by some to be the epitome of glam rock. Back in this came out in '74 actually, so. 73, some of these songs were written and recorded in 73, 74, finally released in 75 here. This is a North American release. But oh my goodness, it's just such an amazing, The Sweet at this time consisted of Brian Connolly on lead vocals, Steve Priest on bass, Andy Scott on guitars, amazing guitar player, and Mick Tucker was always one of my favorite drummers as a kid. Probably one of the reasons I really was drawn to the drums. It just spoke to me, and Bonham and so many more. But anyway, Bonham will appear on this list, of course. But yeah, just such a great album. If you've not heard it by now and you're into the hard rock, maybe even the genesis of what would become metal, certainly 80s metal, these guys were a huge influence, and it's such a great album. Perfect 10, in my opinion. These are all in my opinion. Then we go with one that's maybe a little more known mainstream for sure, but The Clash, London Calling. I chose this one. Give 'Em Enough Rope to me is probably right up there. I don't have that on vinyl as one of my favorites from The Clash, but because this is a double album, I chose it. So you kind of get a little more. I'm thinking in terms of, I think Mike mentioned this, if I had to pick 10 albums and I was put away somewhere for a while, hopefully not too soon, that home will come someday, I guess. But this would be one of those albums I'd have there and cranking it up for all my my other residents to hear. But just a great album, of course. I'm not going to go over the list of every song on here, on all of these albums, but that's a perfect 10 to me. London Calling, great album. And of course, another double I grabbed from these guys because it is probably my favorite album by Led Zeppelin, and of course, Physical Graffiti. You know, I did a video a while back talking about albums that were still sealed. This one is still sealed. I still haven't cracked it open, but I don't need to really. I should, because I've heard opinions. Opinions may vary that the vinyl could potentially warp. I think that comes more from the shrink wrap, putting tension on the vinyl. This one is a fairly loose shrink wrap, so I'm not concerned about that happening. But anyway, this is the 40th anniversary edition. And of course, just I don't have to say much about that. I don't think. If you've not heard it, you're here on YouTube. It's easy to research and go check it out. And I highly recommend you do. These guys had to appear on here, and this is my favorite release by them. But yeah, AC/DC Power Rage. I've been on record as saying this is when AC/DC really came into their own for me. Bill Evans was no longer on bass, and instead it's Cliff Williams. Just incredible. And of course, Bon Scott, the original vocalist, is my favorite AC/DC era. Not that I don't like the Brian Johnson. I absolutely love it. And as I alluded to at the beginning, the line between just amazing and excellent is almost non-existent. It's almost nil. But Power Rage would definitely be my favorite from which used to be Highway to Hell, but over the years, this has kind of overtaken it as my favorite from that Bon Scott era for AC/DC. Full of bangers on that one too. And of course, I had to include the Ozman, and this is my favorite album by him. Diary of a Madman. 10 out of 10 for sure. I mean, Over the Mountain, Flying High Again, Can't Kill Rock and Roll, Believer. I mean, come on. And then, of course, the title track, but Little Dolls, Tonight, Sato. You know, some allege that's for Sharon. And but anyway, who cares? Diary of a Madman. Like I say, every track on here is just 10 out of 10, in my opinion. I mean, that's, all these albums are albums that are near and dear to me over the years, are just regular rotation on my turntable. And of all the Ozzy albums, this would be the one that I play the most. Just not even close. Speaking of close, I guess Blizzard of Oz would be maybe the next, but certainly this one, just amazing album. And keeping with Ozzy, but with the original group of his, well, him and Iommi and Ward and Butler, of course, right? Paranoid. Now, I hesitated to choose this one just because there are a few songs on here that are just so oversaturated, overplayed. War Pigs, Paranoid, and of course, Iron Man. But if you put it in context and listen to this album start to finish, man, oh man, it's hard to say it's not 10 out of 10. I just about went with Master Reality. I could have gone with Volume 4, even with changes. I love pretty much all their discography. And of course, there's a couple of, Heaven and Hell, Mob Rules with Dio on vocals I could have chosen. But ultimately, I went with this one. If I was introducing someone to Black Sabbath, how can you not go with this one? I guess, arguably, like to each their own. But for me, yeah, it's definitely 10 out of 10. Next up, and one of my all-time favorite bands for sure, and this is my favorite album by them, and I'm not trying to be a contrarian, but honest to God, this is my favorite. But it's close. Again, very close. But Metallica, Ride the Lightning. Maybe because there's that, oftentimes it's said, your introduction to a band maybe pulls, in that direction. And I heard this right away. I had to get Kill 'Em All. And, but right when this came out, I heard this. A friend of mine, I was going to say burnt it, recorded it on cassette and got it to me. And yeah, been a Metallica fan ever since, and this is just a killer album. Every track is 10 out of 10. Next up, I saw somebody else in the violin community show this recently, and some of the tracks on here weren't as strong for them, but that's how this whole world spins round and around. And but this one, to me, again, there was a few I could have chosen, but there's a track here and there that aren't as strong. But to me, this one is strong, start to finish. Screaming for Vengeance, Judas Priest. I remember when this came out, and it was, they had, you've got another thing coming on some of the different compilations and whatnot, and it was maybe suffered a little bit from being overplayed. But over time, I still come back to this when I put it on. It's just, wow. I mean, Stained Class is right up there for me. Sad Wings of Destiny is right up there, but they're all up there. I even seen somebody do one, and Rockarola, that's always been a favorite of mine as well. So, but this, 10 out of 10 for sure. So I'll move it along here. I've only got a couple left, and the last two are in somewhat order because it is my favorite band for sure, favorite metal band. And I had to include two albums because two separate vocalists, two drummers. But it's, and this is a double album as well, Live After Death. This is their World Slavery Tour. They were on tour for many months during that, after the Power Slave album. And this actually came out. Most of the recordings off this are from Long Beach Arena in LA, and Hammersmith over in England. But just a fantastic album. This, of course, has got Bruce Dickinson on vocals and Nico on the drums. But it's 10 out of 10. And it's for Iron Maiden, you've got so many of their classic. And the only thing I've ever thought about this is how cool would it have been to hear this type of live production with Di'Anno on vocals, because Made in Japan, the one they did off the Killers tour, is really only an EP, and it's a great album, but this has got so many more. Having said that, which leads me to this, I had to choose this as well, 10 out of 10, Iron Maiden Killers, just because it's got one of my favorite drummers of all time, Clive, rest in peace, and of course Di'Anno on vocals. And every song on here is amazing. So that's it. Those are 10 albums that I think are 10 out of 10. Now, there's so many more. You could almost do like a 10-part series on this, because I could pick many, many albums that I think are 10 out of 10 in my collection. And, another thing about this 10 out of 10 and must-haves, I consider everything I own as must-haves because I love them. And that's why I buy them. I typically don't buy a record for one song, although I have seen the odd one here at thrift stores, bargain bins, that I'll grab just because they're cheap. But then there's something about them I can always find I like more than just the one song. I just love music, and that's why I do this. I hope you enjoy it, and I know you enjoy the music or you wouldn't be here. So I'll leave it at that. Like I say, go over and sub up his channel. It's I'll pull it up here again, just so you can see Damon Talks Records. I don't want to forget that, and it's switching pages on me here again for some reason. Sorry about that. Yeah, Damon Talks Records. Go and subscribe, jump on the thread. It's a lot of fun. That's why we do what we do, is just for the enjoyment. At least I hope. Don't take it too serious. I certainly don't. And yeah, 10 out of 10 records. Great thread, man. Really enjoyed it. Enjoyed watching some of the other videos as well. So jump on and do one. A lot of fun. Take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I hope to see you again soon here on Twanger's Turntable.